so we could put it on the YouTube channel, which actually has a lot of followers now. I was surprised that people actually watch the recordings, so that's cool.
It's you and me rewatching them, Christy. Don't worry about it.
Oh, I have never rewatched one of our videos.
You don't?
No.
But
That would be weird.
so I can improve. Okay, I need a hobby.
Okay.
I hear you. Shush. Let's go into this.
It's what we need AI for. Um, okay, I don't actually have any introductions in here.
Well, ask the group because we have quite a few attendees. Did anybody attend Dreamforce virtually or in person this year? And if not, that's okay.
Or attend a watch party of some sort.
Virtually, in person.
I always wish that we could do a watch party, but we're always at Dreamforce, so it would be really difficult. But I think it would be really fun.
I know that wasn't
just like have a get together.
It sounded really sassy right now.
What?
You said we always wanted to host a watch party, but we're always at Dreamforce. Like that sounded sassy.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be sassy. Maybe we should actually introduce ourselves though, because I see a lot of new names in here. So, hey everybody, I'm Christy Brown. I am an architect and just Salesforce fangirl. I work for Slalom, and we started this group in 2020, 2021?
When there was a pandemic, that's when we started it.
When there was a pandemic happening, knock on wood. This is Tracy, who just sasses me the whole time.
Tracy Hartz, Salesforce admin. I work for a company called Cockroach Labs. Yes, I joined the company because I thought the name was funny and I thought their merch would be cool. And I was right about both of those theories.
Don't you have like a giant cockroach pillow?
You got that for me on my first day.
Okay. Yes. That wasn't for the company.
I do have that cockroach pillow, but that was a gift from you.
Nice. Of course it was.
Thank you.
You're so brave. Okay, well, I just wanted to throw up these numbers because I think it makes Dreamforce sound even more powerful. Obviously, it's like an amazing learning conference, but you go to a lot of conferences where you don't actually learn anything and it's just full of marketing and you just go for the swag, right? But I think that these numbers really show that if you interact with Dreamforce content, you do actually learn something, or at least 93% of people do. I thought that the 90% one was kind of weird because Salesforce is all about, connecting you with your customers, but that number is slightly lower. But I think this is really powerful. So we're going to walk through today just some of the big announcements and our takeaways from Dreamforce, and then how you can still interact with the Dreamforce content, after the fact, and kind of next steps that you should be taking to think about everything. But it really is worth your while. So anyways, that's what the 93% is for. And then also Tracy already asked how you guys participated, but I did just want to also show that there are many ways to interact with Dreamforce now since the pandemic. It didn't feel like it, but there were only 40,000 people in person at Dreamforce this year. I don't know if the campus was smaller or
the campus was
I'm just not used to people, but it felt like a lot of people. It felt way more than that.
A little
like there were 40,000 people around me at all times.
Well, we lost the Hilton and we lost the marketing hotels. The campus was greatly reduced in size.
That's true.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can go in person. Of course, there's the live broadcast with keynotes and specific sessions, and then on demand on Salesforce Plus, of course. And we'll talk about more of what's available on Salesforce Plus in a little bit because it's actually super helpful. I agree, Caesar. I got trampled like several times, I think. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to call out, obviously, is like the biggest announcement that they made, which is really just a rebranding. It's not even a new product. But I wanted to call out the Einstein One platform. It is rebranding, and I think even Parker made a funny comment about rebranding, and it's just rebranding. But they did make a couple updates here, right? So all of these apps are now on the core platform that share the same metadata framework, which is just going to make it easier for those higher scale products like B2B commerce marketing cloud. And then data cloud, obviously the big one that got pulled into the core platform, um, is now core, but also the big announcement there is that they're going to a freemium model, which I really appreciate. So anybody can turn on and use Data Cloud now, and you get up to 10,000 profiles for free. And when I first heard that, I was like, what does that mean? But a profile it's like a contact or an account. So basically, you can harmonize data for up to 10,000 people is what that means. So is that going to take a big bite out of it if you're a larger company? No, but it will give you enough to see if it's worth the additional cost for you and just figure out like how you can actually start playing with it and using it. I don't, Tracy, do you guys use Data Cloud at Cockroach yet?
No, it's been in discovery for like the past 8 months, I'd say, but it's a hard one to pull the trigger on, even even with the money.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. The other thing I wanted to call out, just from the Einstein One platform, is this Einstein Trust Layer. I know we've had what, two or three Gen AI sessions just in user groups so far, and I feel like everyone's concern is about security and trust and pumping your company data into these big large language models, and then they're training their models on your data, and then there's security breaches and like shit hits the fan, right? And so I really appreciate all of the development dollars that Salesforce is putting into the Einstein Trust Layer. And this is one thing that is GA already. It went GA, when they went GA with like the Sales GPT and Service GPT and Slack GPT and all of the product names plus GPT with them. The rest of this stuff is still in pilot and won't be GA for the next, I would say, like 1 to 4 quarters. But the Einstein Trust Layer is there already. And I just wanted to dig deeper into all of the bits and pieces of that because I think it's important for people to understand what it is, so that you can have these conversations with your companies and people will trust you. I guess is the important thing here. So the first thing it does is secure data retrieval. So this just means that um, if people are putting prompts out there, Salesforce is going to respect the permissions that that user has. So any field level security that they have, through permission sets or profile access, it's going to respect that. So they can't send data out into this model that they don't have access to. So I think that that's pretty huge. Dynamic grounding is going to actually attach additional data to your prompt. So, say that you're asking questions about a case or something, it might attach a knowledge article to your prompt for you to give the model more context so that you get better generated content back. And I think that that's super helpful because prompt generation is really hard. We've talked about that a few times too, and like I still don't have the hang of it. I never give it enough context. I don't. Tracy, have you played with it a lot?
I'm pretty good at it at this point, and I know why you have trouble with it because you don't have the patience yet.
That's true. Or the time. No time. The third thing is data masking, and this one, like the high level is it's going to strip all of your PII data from the prompt so that sensitive data isn't going into these models, which of course is great. But the other thing it does, it wraps the whole prompt in this enclosure to protect it from prompt injection. And when I first saw that, I was like, great, another thing we have to worry about that I didn't even know about that I would have never thought about. Like, we're always worried about SOQL injection or people, putting SOQL statements in field values that could go, access additional data, that type of thing. I had no idea we needed to be worried about that with with these generative AI prompts. Um, Something to consider, but Salesforce is taking care of that for us, thankfully, because they know what we don't know. So I love that they thought of that, and I don't have to worry about it anymore. The zero retention thing is also huge. It's sending your prompts into these models, but it will not allow any of that data to be stored outside of Salesforce. So once your prompt is processed, your prompt and whatever content gets generated from that prompt get deleted. It's forgotten, which I think is really important. I have no idea how they make that happen. I need to learn more about it. But I love that that's a thing, and I think that that'll be really important for companies as we get our AI strategies in place.
Yeah, and that one's a big one because not all companies are promising this currently. In fact, a lot are saying we're keeping it, and you just have to agree.
Yeah. Wasn't it you who told me like Zoom was recording everybody's meetings now and
Yep.
using that to train their models?
Train their LLMs, yeah.
So crazy. Toxicity detection is another big one, and I think this one's really important. And I know, in the last, I don't know, few years, half a decade, I don't know how long it's been since this tech has been around, honestly, but we hear about all of these generative AI bots who've like become racist overnight or like hate women now or just like they cuss like pirates and sailors. And this toxicity detection is just going to help prevent that. So it's going to go through and scan for offensive and toxic and harmful language so that we're not putting that out into the world, both ways, I think, right? So that we're not training with toxic behavior and language, but we're also not accidentally putting that back into the content that we're generating.
Maybe it's going to go old school and just like surface like Shakespearean level insults, Not going to be like,
I thumb at thee.
yes, yeah. Do you bite your thumb at me, sir?
That would be awesome. Oh, sorry, Robert. I didn't mean to scare you with Zoom. And then the audit trail, and I realize now that I put the same thing for zero retention in this box, but the audit trail is actually giving you a trail, a time-stamped trail of when all of these things are happening for your prompts so that you can actually go back and audit like did dynamic grounding happen? Did data masking happen? So you can go through and just review and analyze and make sure that everything is up to par, which I think is really great. I haven't seen any other generative AI tool give you an audit trail at this point. So I feel like the setup audit trail is something that we're using constantly, and so having just another piece of that specific to AI will be awesome. So, anyways, this is the Einstein Trust Layer. There is a whole Trailhead module just for the Einstein Trust Layer. I recommend taking that. I think it's part of the like Dreamforce Quest at this point, or just one of the other AI trail mixes they've put out. But definitely recommend learning more about this just because it'll help you, talk about this with your companies or just in general. You'll sound so smart. Okay, next thing after trust, I think Copilot is what starts making these tools actionable for people. And these are not GA yet, of course, but there's two versions of Copilot. So there's the Einstein 1 Copilot and then the Einstein 1 Copilot Studio, which was too long to put in my text box there. But Copilot is giving you basically an AI assistant. It's like a sidebar that lives inside of every Salesforce application. You can ask it prompts and it generates stuff for you. It even does AI generated actions for you. So it'll say, like, hey, do you want to create a sales plan or something after this meeting that you just had? And when they were talking about that, it kind of made me feel like macros, like that's what I thought of, except for being based on user clicks and me making this happen. The AI would just take care of it for me, which I thought was cool, helpful. And then Copilot Studio is like Copilot Plus. it's you know, the really the admin toolkit for this stuff. It allows you to, so there's two products that come with it: Prompt Builder and Skills Builder. And with Prompt Builder, it's going to let you create prompt templates, so that people don't have to be amazing prompt engineers, and they can just reuse things for various business cases that you guys come up with. I think it's going to come with like a bunch of templates already created too. And then Skills Builder, and that's where you can go in and customize those like AI generated actions that you want to happen, which was a little confusing for me. I haven't obviously had time to play with this or explore it more yet, but if you're setting up what actions you want it to do, are they really AI generated, or are you just like building flows in the background that you want it to kick off for you? I was a little confused about
Well,
that
this
part.
brings up that broader problem that we've talked about previously, where everybody, now that AI is big, everybody's claiming their tools are AI, when that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah.
Or aspects of it, sure, yes, they are AI, but not every part is AI.
Yeah.
A merge field is not AI. You know, like at its simplest. Sorry, I saw that and I'm like, oh yeah, that's cute.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so it'll be interesting. Both of these, I want to say, are going to be GA in January, which is really fast. But keep an eye on the calendar, and maybe I can find the calendar and post it somewhere in like the meeting recap or something, so you guys can keep an eye on them.
Okay.
All of these things you can request to be. Some of them are open pilots right now. Some of them are closed pilots right now. Um, but definitely do the trailheads about them. I would just search Einstein 1 in Trailhead and find everything you can about it. I think it'll be good, even if you guys aren't going to be using this new functionality soon or ever. It's good to just know how it's getting baked into the platform for sure. And even if you're just playing with it like in a Trailhead playground or something, um, it's good for your job growth, right? To learn how to do it all, even if your company isn't gonna pay for it right now. Okay, so I think, and Tracy, I don't know about you. So the Dreamforce obviously was all about AI. Like it was deemed the AI conference of the year, right? And there
Yes.
were thousands of sessions that were about AI. I also attended several sessions that were about, are you even ready for AI? Have you started thinking about it yet? Like, what do all these changes mean for you? I think there were 65, 69, something like that, product announcements that happened at Dreamforce. And it's a lot to take in. And so figuring out like how do you even get started with all of this,
Mm-hmm.
um, is really important. And so I took down some notes from the sessions that I went to on this, and then Salesforce has been pumping out blogs about it. I think that they recognize now that not everybody knows where to start or has even heard of any of these tools yet. You know, some people have not heard of Chat GPT yet. So what do we even need to do here? So some tips, a lot of them. First kind of bucket here is assessing your readiness and really identifying business value. Is AI actually going to bring value to your business? And if you think so, like what are those actual use cases, right? You have to really narrow down on something, which brings you to how will you harness AI? Like, where are you going to put it? Is it going to be an assistant for your sales reps? Is it going to be a chat bot? Is it going to be, customer facing or internal facing? Starting to think about those things. And then really analyzing your current infrastructure, your data, and then workforce skills just to identify gaps. Like, you don't have to make any changes right now, but what's there? Do you have people on your team that know about AI already? Are they interested in learning AI? Do they have the skills to learn AI? Will you need to do any hiring for this? I think keeping in mind all the way on the campfire bucket over there too, just keep in mind embracing transparency and empowering your people and coming at this from, we're not trying to replace you, we're trying to come up with something that makes us all more efficient, you know.
I think I had some great conversations with people at Dreamforce around this assessing our readiness, because AI is one of those things that came out and everybody's like, well, we need Chat GPT. Well, why do you need Chat GPT? Don't know. Everybody else has it, so I need it. And
Exactly.
while that works in your personal life, it doesn't work to scale with businesses. And so the themes of a lot of conversations I had were identifying those gaps and like truly usable use cases, because I work primarily with sales, and the people that I spoke to as well said, well, sales comes in and they just want everything automated for them. And it's like, well, yes, that is typical, but that's not necessarily useful, and that's not necessarily AI. And so
Yeah.
what I found, especially at Dreamforce, was this movement or agreement that a great place to possibly start, if your gaps are protected. Sorry.
Hi, Cheddar.
Better. If your gaps are potentially with your sales, looking at call recordings. And so there are so many tools on the market that record your calls. And then right now, the current expectation is that your manager will review those calls and have a one-on-one with you to go over what worked and what didn't. But where AI can fill that gap, especially if management manages big teams and doesn't have the time to do that, is AI is listening in on those calls and either shooting out a synopsis or actually filling data on your opportunity records about what was discussed in that call. And so that was like, and it seems like it's a large thing, but maybe that's a small place to start, especially when you're dealing with end users who think AI and they think of one of two things: it's going to take my job away, or I want it to do all the parts of my job that I currently bitch about. Neither of those are acceptable use cases, but here's a path that may be.
Yeah, I love that. And actually, we're gonna show an example of the like transcription thing a little bit later. But yeah, I love that use case. I think that's a good segue to identifying use cases again that have a focus on, what's the greatest impact and what are our company goals. So again, find an actual use case. You can't just have it because everyone else has it and you want to tell your customers that, yeah, we do something with AI, because let's face it, it's going to be costly, right? This is something that we're paying for. It's not free. And it will have an impact, on your data and your people. So again, you can join pilots, and just validate the capabilities. Are the things that Salesforce is putting out in all of these features actually helpful for you, or do you need to look elsewhere or do some custom development? Just starting to validate those things. And then again, just about the transformation piece, I think it's really important that we're involving diverse stakeholders in all of these conversations, promoting transparency, embracing a learning mindset, and just empowering people. Not everybody is on board with AI. And so I feel you don't have to tiptoe, but you definitely need to be open minded and understanding, I think, as we have these conversations. Tracy, I think Foxy heard Cheddar squeaker because now she's over here.
Sorry, Foxy.
Okay, so some action items from that first bucket. I think that the biggest thing that we all need to be thinking of, and doing is making sure that our data is clean. And this goes back to, garbage in, garbage out. Even if you have an amazing AI strategy, if you're training your model with crappy data, then Einstein can't help you. It's not going to generate anything useful. So starting to look at our data, is it clean? Do you have 74 inactive pick list values that are still in your data and now nobody knows what any of the actual pick list values should be? Is it consistent? Do you have a lot of holes in your data? Do you have records that only have 3 fields filled in when you really want Einstein to be predicting on, the 75 other fields that should have been filled in? And then is it integrated? Is all of your data siloed in, 7 different applications, or is it together in one place somewhere like Data Cloud where it is actually unified? And can be easily, pumped into a model. So starting to look at those things, I think tools like Tableau, of course, or CRM Analytics, or even, on the App Exchange, like Field Trip. Tracy, what are the other ones that we like to tell people about on the App Exchange to just help identify clean data or bad data, rather?
It's org health. Gosh, the names are escaping me, but I'm putting a link into Salesforce Ben. This may seem a little, because it's coming from the standpoint of like your consultancy, but attacking your org and your org's data from that point of view is best right now. So performing data checks outside of Optimizer, like obviously start with Optimizer, but this article gives great resources on what an audit of your org looks like, getting that data clean at least, or at the very least, finding the culprits so that you can then work towards a solution. Another big thing that I can link in here is, monitoring and being proactive and getting that data clean would be to start creating those dashboards of zeros for your orgs.
Yep, for sure. So yeah, Tracy will put links in the chat. And then in this middle section here, again, we already talked about it, but just start talking about AI. Like, do you have an AI strategy already? Is it related to your data strategy? Do you have a data strategy? That's where you need to start. And then talking about even more granular things, like, do you know who's responsible for what data in your org? And are those people doing proactive data reviews? Or, is all of this just on you? Are you a solo admin and you're the only person in your company? You need to start talking about it, though. You can talk about it in one-on-ones. You can talk about it in team meetings. Just start bringing it up. Like, hey, what is our data strategy? Or are we interested in AI? Lots of homework for you guys. Sorry. Okay, and then another thing we can do is just start practicing with prompts. I already said I'm bad at it because I haven't spent enough time practicing. And I think that this is going to be super crucial, especially if, as admins and developers, we're going to use this to help make our jobs more efficient, right? Like, I can't ask Salesforce or Einstein, whatever we're calling it, I can't ask Einstein to build me a flow to create opportunities, right? I need to give it more context. I need to say, record types and who's it for and what fields I need to fill in. I need to be able to give it enough context to actually build for me what I need, and not just something I'm going to delete and have to rebuild myself anyways. I think a lot of these prompt guidance is for more content generated things like creating emails, campaign type stuff, but I think that they're still applicable for admins and developers too. So you have to be specific. You have to give a ChatGPT context so that it actually produces something that's usable. And you're going to do that by, one, using a conversational tone. Like, we're going to talk like just like we are right now. We're talking to Tracy. We're having a conversation with our friend. We're not going to use jargon, even though I'm sure Tracy does. Just talk to it, right? It's your new BFF. You're going to ask it open-ended questions. And again, this goes back to more like producing content versus producing a flow or an Apex class. But you don't want to ask it yes or no questions, because that's going to limit what it can produce for you. So don't do that. Open-ended questions are key. You're going to ask for answers from the perspective of whoever you want. I need an email as a middle manager who's overworked and needs a nap, you know, something like that. Or apparently the only two other things I could think of here was Einstein and Oprah. I should have also included Cher. Um, but give it a persona to pretend to be. And then you also need to outline your audience and your channel. So if you're writing for middle aged dads, tell it that. Or if you're writing a blog post, tell it that. Or Twitter, or an email, or more specifically, an onboarding email. And then you can ask follow-up questions when you give a prompt. It's not a one and done thing. You can continue to ask it questions, so it's going to produce something, and you can ask a follow-up question. Just like when Tracy tells me a story about some stupid reality show, I'm like, why though? Yeah. And then she tells me another story about another dumb reality television show. Now she's glaring at me.
There's nothing
um,
stupid about what I told you.
Of course not. Of course not. I was just kidding. I was
Taylor
playing that
Swift
up.
put that football player on the map this week, for the record.
Oh, I saw that on Instagram last night. I didn't know who he was, so I ignored it. Okay, and just an example here, a bad prompt is write me 5 slogans, because what context is there? A better prompt is give me 5 slogans for an email onboarding campaign for new Salesforce users with my financial services company. So I've given it lots of context to go on, creates or generates better content for you.
By the way, I Googled middle-aged dad blogs, and it's quite the list. So that prompt
Oh
is
my god.
not horrible.
Amazing. I thought we would just throw out that Dreamforce wasn't all AI. I went to a lot of other sessions that had nothing to do with AI as well. Um, I don't think that we talked about AI at all in our debugging session. And I went to like this Representation Matters panel, which was just a bunch of badass women talking about their journeys with the platform. There was an AI lens applied to some things, but yeah, I also loved the well architected sessions. One of my favorites was, I think you went with me to it, was the accessibility one,
Yes, that was a
and
good
just
one.
thinking about how you're designing your UI and your user experiences, and just thinking about symbols and the colors you're using, so that, people who are going blind or colorblind or use a screen reader can still interact with the platform. And I feel like those are not things that people just naturally think about. You have to train yourself to think about those things. And I love that they're calling out accessibility more. There were lots of networking sessions. I went to 4. Did you go to any networking sessions?
I went to one.
Nice. I also went to a coloring session, and I got a Salesforce coloring book, and it was really nice. And we just sat under this tree and colored. It was fun. I did a lot of volunteering at demo booths in Trailblazer Cove. It was really fun. I just got to tell people about user groups for both the Tableau community and the Trailblazer community, but it was really fun to just talk to so many different people about what they're doing and why they should connect with other humans. And I thought it was really fun. I mean, the magic of Dreamforce is the people, right? Even for poor introverts like me. And then I also just wanted to call out that I really love attending sessions that I know absolutely nothing about. Like, I went to several developer sessions, and I can get by, but I would not call myself a developer. I'm not writing code all day every day. And I went to some that I was just like, what the heck is this? And I like went down this rabbit hole, and I learned new things, and I thought it was really fun. So when you are scrolling through the session lists, like, don't be afraid to just click on random things and see what they are, because you're going to learn something everywhere.
With the sessions that I went to, I focused a lot on Slack, the Slack and Salesforce integration. So Slack had a huge presence this year. Obviously, there's AI as part of the Slack to Salesforce integration, but that is right up there with Merge.
Like GPT.
Um, but still great things that it offered. I was looking at things from the perspective of what am I not using now that's part of what we already pay for? And I was especially looking at that through the lens of Slack because that is what my company uses the most. Some things that were also really great, the architect tracks, I'm on the track towards, that's my aspiration. And I thought there were a lot more than in previous years and really great information. Some things that were missing for me for Dreamforce. Marketing cloud presence was basically non-existent for me. The sessions were light. Pardot was nowhere to be found. And I thought that
It
was
was so weird.
it was very odd. And then, just the nonprofits, they definitely had a smaller scope than they have previously. There was a bigger push to represent all of the industries, the industry clouds, which I thought was cool, but I thought that some of these had to take a hit as a result of that.
Yeah.
That was my overall take from that.
I think a lot of things took a hit just to give AI a bigger presence. Like there wasn't a Trailblazer keynote this year.
Yeah.
Just little things like that were missing. But okay, so how can you still interact with Dreamforce now that it's over?
It's literally my favorite part.
So the session catalog is still published. You don't even have to be logged in to look at it. All of the sessions are still there. I saw this awesome Einstein summaries thing. So you'll see this blue tag that says session summaries by Einstein. They recorded not a lot, not all of the sessions. I want to say it was like the 40-minute or more ones. They transcribed them, pumped it through Einstein. Einstein spit out a session summary and then key takeaways. And I think that's awesome. It's like the Cliff Notes, if I'm not aging myself, of Dreamforce. You could just come in here and read bullet points of that session and then be on your merry way or go research that more later. I think it's really cool. I wish that they would do this for every session.
But for the ones that don't, all of the speakers were required to save their PDFs to their session titles. So, I mean, this is something that I did with my team. We did divide and conquer at Dreamforce. None of us went to the same exact session so that we could hit up as much as possible. And then when we recapped with each other, we shared our favorites. So now I can go in with the list that my teammates had as their favorites, download those PDFs, study them, and be up to date as well.
Love that. I will say I was scrolling through and not all sessions have their resources linked, but most of them do. Some of them have more than one thing. Some of them have just their slide decks. Some of them have more resources that they've linked to. So at the top of this GIF, when it recycles again, you'll see like the little blue download arrow. So if you see that, it means that there are resources attached to these sessions and you can download them and play with them. I think too, just scrolling through the session catalog and finding things that you did miss that you find interesting and go searching those topics on Trailhead. There's a ton of Dreamforce focused trail mixes that have been put in place. And then, a million badges on top of that. So just go start reading about these things. Even the Salesforce blog post that they pumped out, all of that content is super valuable and has deeper links to other resources. So don't be afraid to still interact with this. And then, of course, if it is available on Salesforce Plus, it'll have a little Salesforce Plus tag or banner, just like the Einstein summary thing, so that you can go watch that. Salesforce Plus does have, I don't know, it's like 400 or something episodes that were all from Dreamforce. And I really appreciate Salesforce Plus now. I skipped all of the keynotes this year because I knew that they would be on Salesforce Plus and I could watch them later. I watched them at the airport actually on my way home. But there's also stuff on Salesforce Plus that you can't get at Dreamforce. Like it's like post-game recaps or post-debate recaps where they like talk about what you just heard during the keynotes or from specific sessions, and so you can really digest it and understand what people are talking about and the key takeaways. And I think that that's super helpful. And you do not get that if you're live at Dreamforce, because they only do that on Salesforce Plus. And it's like Soledad O'Brien who does that, which I
I
think
know.
is awesome. They have like real journalists doing it.
One
It's also kind of funny, but
One last hack I'd recommend, and like go through the agenda builder. Please go through the agenda builder and find those sessions. But searching Trailhead for the topic is great. I search the speaker because odds are, in a lot of these cases, Dreamforce is obviously the event to speak at, but these sessions were talked about at regional events or community group meetings. So if you search the speaker in Google instead, odds are you will find their deck. It may not be from Dreamforce, but it's still going to be relevant.
it's a good tip. Or you'll find more user group sessions on the same topic.
100%.
Okay, so making a plan. I leave Dreamforce every year with like an entire notebook full of notes, and I get really sad when all of those notes just die in my notebook. And that has happened a lot of times because it was like so overwhelming. I didn't know what to do with them, and I get better at it every year. But getting those things out of your notebook into a shareable format that you can share with your team, like Tracy was talking about, she does with her team, you have to do that. You have to create like a recap document of some sort to just get the ideas out of you so you can re-remember them and you can start actioning them. And how you do that is you start setting goals. You need to prioritize them. Maybe you turn it into like a Kanban board or something. What are the things that you need to implement right now? Like what's going to help your team instantly be more efficient? And what are your stretch goals? What are things that are not likely to be implemented for at least a year, like AI tools, probably, right? But what are things that you need to start looking at? And for me, well, before I was a consultant, that looked like I'm creating Jira stories for these things, and I'm going to assign them to people. I'm going to create myself subtasks. I'm going to put them on my calendar so that they do not fall apart. Tracy, what does your team do with this kind of stuff?
We make a Confluence document, and yeah, we do Jira tickets out of it. Or if it's something bigger and is in line with our roadmap project, we'll add it into the scoping of that future project. So like Slack is my example. We already have a Slack epic planned. And so we just built in additional tickets based on our findings at Dreamforce.
Cat is trying to kill me.
Excellent.
I love that. We already talked about finding stuff on Trailhead. I do recommend putting something on your calendar to remind you to do that. Otherwise, you will never get to it because none of us have time for anything extra, right? Join the community, which you guys all have done already. I do want to just call out that, I mean, I know a lot of you guys are here from not San Diego, so you're already doing this, but there's a whole community calendar with every community meeting internationally on it, and you can just go join anything. Like most of these are virtual, right? You don't have to be from Austin or from Spain. Just go to a meeting and find people and listen to what they're talking about. I think I've beat this one to death already, but talk to your team. You have to start bringing up these ideas. And I think, when I was still just a Salesforce customer, this one was really helpful for me because the more you talk about what you learned at Dreamforce, what you implemented from Dreamforce, so maybe even like tag all those Jira epics and stories with a Dreamforce tag or something, the more worthwhile your boss is going to think going to Dreamforce is, and they'll pay for you to go again next year. Or if they didn't pay for you to go this year, they'll pay for you to go next year because Dreamforce really is valuable. There is a return on the investment, right? So talking about these things and making it very well known that I went to Dreamforce and I learned X, Y, and Z. And because of that, we implemented A, G, and J. And look what happened. We're like the best company in the world now, stuff like that. And then obviously just have fun. I know Dreamforce is my time, and Trailhead DX too is just when I go and get reinvigorated about Salesforce, and I just get so excited because you do learn more, and you just I'm just like ready to do stuff and play with AI and be awesome. So definitely have fun with it, even if it's after the fact. You know, pop yourself some popcorn and put Salesforce Plus on the TV and go watch a keynote. Check out Uncle Mark's shoes. You know, they're awesome.
Weird segue, but yes.
Whatever. I think that's the end of our slides.
So I just want to call out that release readiness is happening this week. It started yesterday. So go on to Salesforce Plus because winter is upon us. Whether we know that in San Diego or not,
coming anymore.
It's already here. But that started yesterday. So there's still sessions and recordings to watch. You can watch them live or just watch the recordings of them. But release readiness has already begun.
Woo, go winter.
Great. I think that's it for us today.
Hope everybody was able to eat lunch or whatever meal time it is for you now.
Thank you guys.
Next month, we'll be back the third Wednesday again, because hopefully my child is not vomiting all over herself again.
That's a great note to end on, and we're recorded. Thank you guys for joining. We'll see you next month. I'm going to hit stop recording, Kristen.
Bye.